A lovely day and it's a Lion's Day. Oh yes, it's a Lion's Day. You're specially welcome. You're welcome. It's the Lion's Den. A Lion's Den again. Oh yeah, it's the Lion's Den again. The Lion's Den again and again and again. Hanging out with Taxmaster 4450 LE. Yeah, here we talk about different things that relates to the blockchain in general. Don't forget, I'm your host on TikTok here at Caleb Marvel 01. You're specially welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Welcome to the Lion's Den. Welcome. A special welcome to you all, man. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Anytime you need to get some info on the blockchain's activities, feel free to be part of this Lions Den. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. The Lions Den, we are live and direct here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see you're hanging out with Caleb Marvel 24. Okay, you're welcome. Welcome once more to the Lions Den. We're gonna be starting in 2 minutes from now. We'll be starting the Lions Den, and I would like you to, yeah. I'd like you to invite your friends, invite everyone you know because it's the Lions Den. Yeah. The Lions Den is a section where we talk about different things that affect the blockchain. We throw out so many updates and so many things you need to know about the blockchain. Oh yeah. Those are what we do on the Lions Den. Yeah. I say Taxmaster is our host, and don't forget to invite your friends. We're gonna be kicking off very soon. Oh yeah. Thank you and thank you and thank you very much. You're especially welcome to the Lions Den. In case you want to get more info about our activities, just go to your browser and search for inleo.io. You're gonna see you're gonna see it. Yeah. You're welcome once more. It's just settings before we kick on officially.
Okay, everybody. It's now 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Got a couple people in the room, maybe a few more filter in. Cal Marvel has, I believe, set up the feed on his TikTok. In fact, he just put the link up. So anybody who has issues with spaces, which tends to be a lot of people, you can click on the link that's in the Threadcast. That'll take you to Caleb Marvel's TikTok feed where he has this space streaming through there. So it extends the reach a little bit more. There are no questions in the threadcast as of yet, so we will jump right into it. If you do have any questions to be taken on air, just drop them in the threadcast, which is on inleo.io. I haven't refreshed the page in a while. Let me see. The threadcast, it does not seem to have made it up to the top yet. I don't know if we've hit the required 15 comments. Maybe we have not. Nope, we're at 14 comments. So let me add another comment so it gets to the top. And now we have 15, so it should appear there shortly. One thing Mike possibly said, I tested Inception Labs' new groundbreaking diffusion LLM Mercury today. It is currently free to use. It is significantly faster than a traditional LLM and apparently has the potential for excellent reasoning capabilities as well. This may, and he italicized that to highlight it, represent a paradigm shift, a new paradigm, in AI development. Trying to read it while it's moving is not easy. And he had a link, are diffusion LLMs the next paradigm in AI development? Some argue that it is. I just signed up for the waitlist for early API access. I guess we'll find out soon enough. And the image that he posted said, unlike traditional LLMs that generate text one token at a time, diffusion models output text in parallel. So that's some interesting information, considering we've spent so much time on talking about AI. Maybe it's due to my inherent bias, and I have no problem stating my inherent bias, that I believe AI is everything and all else is window dressing. AI is going to be integrated into everything. And the longer that entities, whether it's applications, whether it's companies, businesses, individuals, whatever, the longer entities resist and do not get involved and do not make it the primary focus, the more they're screwed, because they will be further and further behind. In fact, I had a brief conversation with Cal, and let me copy this since it fell down. I'll copy and paste it at the top. This is a direct quote that he sent me. This is not my saying. And I just posted in Threadcast. Our AI needs to be fed more real-time data. The more it gets, the more powerful it is. This is why Grok 3 is so good. So what is Cal talking about? What does that mean? Cal is looking at these databases. He's looking at how the AI is interacting with it. He sees how it's updated. He's able to monitor this. I've never seen it. I've never looked at the vector database. I don't have access to any of this stuff. Everything I've said is based upon research of where things are going and how this stuff works. But I don't have a server that I'm sitting there looking at a vector database. Certainly don't have the Leo server with the vector database. And I don't have the model. And I don't see how they're working in conjunction. But Cal does. And we've been talking about data. We've been talking about vector databases. We've been talking about content. We've been talking about this on the Lions Den for 6 months, at least, maybe longer. And how people need to put data. The data that goes in is what feeds the system. I do not know if people have difficulty following the process. I really don't. I mean, it's a very simple process. If you want better output in the feature, in the AI feature, you have to feed it more data. It's that simple. And I've said this all along. What's going to happen is the Leo AI chatbot will go live. People will try to use it, and they'll say, it doesn't give me the answers I'm looking for. Doesn't tell me what happened last week in my country. Well, did you put the data in? No. Well, how the hell is it to know? I mean, think about it this way. If you learned everything you learned right up to the date when Leo AI started training its model, or when Leo started training its AI model, and from then you did not learn a single thing. So in the last 4 months, let's say 5 months, you have learned zero, nothing. And I asked you a question. What are your chances of answering the question? If it's a question that goes back longer than 5 months, there's a good chance. Maybe you have the data. Maybe you have the knowledge. Maybe you can go back into your memory bank and say, yeah, I can tell you what happened in last July. But if I ask you something that happened on January 1st, what do you say? I have no information past October 25th. I know nothing. The old Colonel Klink from Hogan's Heroes. And that's what Cal said. That's one of the things that makes Grok 3 so good. It's one of the reasons why I'm not real optimistic about ChatGPT, in spite of all the acclaim and all the money and evaluation they have. They don't have the real-time data access. Meta does. Google does. X does. Why? Major social media platforms with people feeding data in each and every day. So that's how you can answer. You can ask Grok something, and it pulls up a whole bunch of information. Think about it. You go and do a Grok search, or you do a prompt on Grok. And what's one of the things it shows you? It shows you the blog posts on X. Some of those blog posts, if you click on them, go back 3 months, 2 months. Some of those blog posts go back a day or 2 days. It's pulling the most recent content. Now, Grok 3 was in training and post-training for however long, a number of months. So Grok 3 is in the same situation. It has no information past the time it started training the model. When it was fed into the neural network, and it's like, okay, let's train this. But, like Leo, X is running their databases. And so every single tweet that people do, every single post that people do, every single image that is uploaded to X is all fed in to their database. And they're using that to supplement what Grok searches and what Grok polls when it's delivering the answers. And Leo can do the same thing. But it requires a ton more data. And I've been beating this drum for 6 or 9 months. Real-time data, which means news, which means information, which means score of the football game, or the hockey game, or the whatever game. It means whatever the prime minister or president or leader of your country is doing, whatever country you're in. It means whatever's going on in the stock market, the crypto market, the bond market, the commodities market, what's going on in Hollywood, what's going on in your local town. This is all stuff That is real-time information. Now, is a lot of it crucial? Maybe, maybe not. But I can guarantee you if it's not put in there, it will not be seen. Yes, there's the capability to keep trying to scrape the internet, and everybody's doing that. But it gets problematic with the more websites are turning things down and they're blocking the robot.txt. They don't want the bot scraping their stuff. Makes it problematic. And we see this in a lot of different areas. So the more stuff we put in, real-time data, the more information that's put up about different geographies, different markets, different areas of interest, different hobbies, different whatever. You know, actress A and actress B are in a pissing contest between each other, fighting in a cat fight online over, you know, some other dude they're dating or were dating or whatever. You know, TMZ type stuff. Sunseeker said, yeah, ChatGPT, at least the free version I've tried, it's already outdated. Yeah. The problem ChatGPT has, and that's not to say that ChatGPT doesn't have its attributes, it certainly does. And what we're seeing with a lot of these, and Ahmed and Mike possibly are in the Threadcast, and they play with this stuff a lot more than I do. You're seeing certain models excel in certain areas. Like Claude is, and it's a little early to talk about Grok 3 because that just came out, but Claude, for a while now, has been the leader by many, according to many, in coding and also in scientific type stuff. Claude was able to do that better than the others. Now, with these reasoning models that are starting to appear and become very commonplace, and ChatGPT has a problem because they just released GPT 4.5, and it was a major letdown. And some are claiming this was supposed to be GPT 5. And they just changed the number because it was not what they expected. It was not anywhere near as good as it was expected. So in that regard, Claude, maybe GPT-3, Gemini is getting a lot of attention. Anthropic keeps getting thrown in there. It's a race. It's a race. But for basic use, and what is Leo? Leo's not going to outpace any of these. Let's be realistic. But the idea with Leo AI and a Leo chatbot is the capability to be on in Leo, to be able to press a button and get instant information about whatever it is. And what is that whatever it is? Where does that information come from? Well, it starts with, it pulls information from the general internet. Because there's information out there that was scraped, there's information out there that was acquired, especially since Leo AI is based on Llama. So you know Facebook's been scraping everything for years before this became vogue. Them and Google have been scraping everything. But you also have Meta, probably the most active applications, at least in the Western world, most active non-Chinese applications, I should say. Meta probably has, well, more data than anybody other than Google. And so that is the foundation that Leo operates from. So we're riding on their coattails. The problem is, as Sunseeker said, Llama 3 which Leo used, had a cutoff date. And so if that cutoff date was 3 months or 4 months before Leo used it, you can see how far behind you're already 7, 8 months behind. Now, Meta doesn't care because they have all the posts on Facebook, they have all the Instagram stuff, they have all the WhatsApp stuff. I mean, they're getting reams and reams of data every day. And this was the idea behind the YouTube summaries that might possibly put together, AI summaries. Because that takes the transcripts from different YouTube videos and posts them onto the Hive blockchain. So now if you take a transcript, if you take a video, and by the way, this is free now. This opened up to anybody. You take the URL of a video, post it in a thread, use !summarize, and it will summarize that video as long as that YouTube video, as long as there's a transcript with that video on YouTube. It uses the transcripts to provide a summary that it puts in the threads underneath, the comments underneath. And so if it's a news video, a video of a storm that's coming into your city or your town, a hurricane, whatever, a snowstorm, and it's a 4-minute video from the weather person, well, it'll take that transcript, put it on there, and say, hey, on Saturday the 8th, Boise, Idaho is going to get 2 feet of snow. And now that's in there. So what Mike possibly was saying is you're looking at the continual evolution. That is moving us towards potentially, according to some, a post-monetary world. And a world where value is measured in many different ways than it is now. And the basic foundation of our economy, classical economics, the relationship between capital and labor, is being completely upended and disrupted. And when you're talking about money, guess what? We're in the digital realm. So if we're talking about money in the digital realm, what is success in the digital realm predicated on, at least in large part? Network effects. And we talked about exponentials till I'm blue in the face. But unfortunately, the more you talk about it, you can't get away from the fact this is the world it's in. The digital world is not a linear world. It's an exponential world. And people do not understand the exponentials because they're used to looking at a linear impact. On the AMA yesterday, Cal was talking about AI. And I said it's a force multiplier. People don't realize what that means. But when you're looking at the capabilities of AI and robots, this going a little bit bigger than Leo, but the point here is this totally, completely transforms our economy. Because when you take a robotics company, you got your largest automobile manufacturers in the world. Toyota, Volkswagen Group, I think those are the two biggest. And I don't know who's bigger, but you take those two companies. They produce, 8, 9 million vehicles a year. Making a humanoid robot or producing a humanoid robot, once you have it, is a lot easier than producing automobiles. They're much smaller. They take a lot less parts. Now, I'm not saying they're easier to design. You still got to design the things and test them and make them work, and this has taken a number of years. But it looks like a lot of these companies are getting to the point where they're ready to move on from prototypes to starting production. May still be a year away, I don't know. But you don't think after a few years, each of these companies is going to be producing 40, 50, 60 million robots in a year? If two car companies can do 8 or 9 million a year, cars, you can bet the ranch, they're going to be doing tens of millions of robots. And there's a lot of companies trying to get into that game. A lot of companies. There's not going to just be one or two. So what are you dealing with? You're dealing with companies that are building robots that are bigger than our largest or most populous cities. I don't know, what's the most populous city? I think Tokyo, about 35 million, 33 million. I think that's the most populous city. What happens when a company blows out 50 million? My point here is we are looking at, over the next 10 years, a high degree of probability, in my opinion, that the economy and the basis of the economy totally gets upended and transformed. And it's all based upon network effects and exponentials. Because, by the way, even though robots are in the physical world, they're going to be run by AI. So where's the value? The value's in the data, because that's what's leading it all. None of this stuff happens without data. Who has it? Where's it going? And what are we creating? You know, obviously you got to figure out how you use it and stuff, but that's exactly what Mike possibly was saying with that. There's a lot of groups out there, a lot of organizations, a lot of project teams that are doing a lot of things with algorithms, with chip design, with processing, with the architecture, on all of this. And we are seeing massive, massive advancement. Oh, you guys really blasted it here while I was going on. Okay. David Pena, do you have a link? I always drop the link down at the bottom, you know, when I set it up, David. Morty's here. Morty said computers get more intelligence while humanity is dumbing down. Yeah, I did see a headline, and I didn't watch the video, but somebody put up a YouTube video that the greatest threat to society, stupid is a bigger threat to society, could cause a downfall more than crime. Might possibly. We need autonomous AI agents on Leo. How about one that searches the web of our current news and makes thread storms automatically? That shouldn't be too difficult to build, now that I think of it. Definitely in the Leo GitLab. I think I already put it in there, yes. I've said for years, and it's fallen on deaf ears, there is absolutely no reason why you could not set up something similar to CoinGecko, even if you did it for crypto. But look at what CoinGecko does. You can go to CoinGecko, and it has the news sections, which there's no news on CoinGecko. These are just links with a little, you know, paragraph or something to Cointelegraph and all these other pages. Now, I don't know what it takes to set something up like that. And maybe it's difficult in the crypto world because, you know, whoever's feeding it the oracle is going to cost some money or whatever. I don't know. But I can't believe that CoinGecko Telegraph wouldn't love for you to keep putting the links on your website right back to their website. I mean, if I was running a website and it's like, hey, if you guys can feed us more traffic, have at it. Put the links to every article we write on your website. But if you do that, then you got the news there, you got that imprinted on the blockchain, even if the link goes back to an outside site, so be it. So yeah, might possibly. That should be standard. Morty said, "Is Leo AI completely sandboxed from the outside world in our own bubble?" No, I mean it's still pulling information from wherever it can, but where they get the information is limited, and there's a big difference for pulling the information for training purposes versus pulling the information or gathering the information that's posted on Hive that feeds into Leo AI for prompting purposes. So obviously, what goes into the vector database ultimately will feed into the next generation of training. But to get stuff up to date, you need that continual feed of information. And that's why ChatGPT, that's why Claude, that's why some of these other chatbots, they end up Venice. There's another one. Venice says, well, I don't have any information past a certain date because that's when the cutoff was when they started training. Well, I think that real-time trained LLMs are better. I think ChatGPT still has the advantage of being the most used for a while, and they could use this for their real-time data requirement. Well, yes and no. I mean, it's how do you feed it in? They're OpenAI is cutting agreements with Reddit, with other entities to try to get that information. So they are taking steps to alleviate it, but it costs them money. And then you also have the problem of what do you do with the data? Well, OpenAI has had a massive exodus of people over the last year, two years. Now that happens, but GPT 4.5, from what I could see, and the reviews I've seen, it was disappointing. Now, we'll have to see what Llama 4 looks like. Llama 3, when it came out, was a resounding success at the time. Grok 3 is a resounding success. Gemini, which is Google, I think they're on 2.0. Maybe I'm wrong on the number. From what I read, that was a resounding success and well received. So, there's no doubt that ChatGPT had the lead, but will they retain it? And as more of this stuff gets built into the platforms, whether it's Google, whether it's X, whether it's Meta, people don't leave. If it's right there, why are you going to go elsewhere? And that's the point with Leo. I was listening to that, I forget what it's called, that call that they had block trades on. And one of the things they brought up is retention. Well, one of the keys with retention is give people what they need right there in front of them. I mean, this is why I've laughed. And that quote that I posted from Cal tells the whole story of Hive. We've had the Hive Army on Twitter for years. Oh, well, go on Hive and bring them over to Web3. And, well, why? Because get them on Hive. You're not on Hive. You're over on Twitter. Well, they'll engage. With who? You're on Twitter. And even if they do engage, what happens the second they need to find out what's going on in the world? They head back to Twitter to find out what's going on because there's no news on Hive. And Cal has just verified that. He said, we need more real-time data. He's looking at the damn database and saying there's very little in there. So, if you have to go to Twitter, if you have to go to Cointelegraph, if you have to go to CoinGecko, if you have to go to ABC News or CNN or BBC or wherever, Sky News, wherever the heck you go to get information, that's not great for retention. John goes here. He can dance. He's got his maple leaf thong on, ready to go. Ahmed said, the game I've been playing last month has a story about AI, and it made me think a lot about the near, in question mark, future of AI in the next 10 years. Our world will never be the same. Agreed. I agree with that sentiment. Depending on what you mean by sandboxed, but I think, yes, Leo AI will always have a bias towards our community or whatever we feed with. Yes. I mean, Ahmed's absolutely correct. You know, biases occur in a number of different ways, and I've talked about the structural biases. The structural biases are this, in any of these models. First off, there's a bias towards English. What's another thing I've been saying for 6 or 7 months? If you have a native language, post stuff in your native language. If you speak Spanish, post some stuff in Spanish. Post stuff in Portuguese. Post stuff in Italian, German, whatever it is. Because there is a bias towards English because most of the stuff on the internet is in English. At least the non-geo-fenced internet that the Chinese have, which that's obviously dominated by Chinese. So that's bias number one. Bias number two, politically speaking, there is a left leaning. Why? Historically, younger people tend to lean more left than older people. And who tends to use technology more? Younger people. Plus your media, especially in your Western countries, for the most part, have been left leaning. And who's been the source historically of content creation? Your media. So those are some inherent biases that you have. Then you have biases built in within the model based upon the weighting of what they do. So like the biases, like Grok, Elon's trying to make it as unbiased as possible in the sense of non-filtered. So some models will filter out adult content. Some models will filter out things like guns. They'll filter out things like drugs. So if you want to talk about heroin or cocaine or how to cook your cocaine or how to shoot up heroin, it'll say, sorry, I cannot give you that. So that's a bias, but it's a filtering. And you know, then you see it go to the extreme where you had Gemini, where it was so woke, it was actually factually incorrect. Because, you know, people are trying to generate images of the founding fathers, and they got this diverse group of people where everybody was non-white and non-male. You know, or people were saying, give me an image of a SS soldier in Nazi Germany. And it was a black woman. It's like, no. But that's a bias. And then the final bias comes from the data itself. So whatever we feed in, you know, if for example, every post over the past 10 years on Leo about on Hive about Bitcoin was that Bitcoin was a scam, Bitcoin was a farce, Bitcoin is a con, Bitcoin is all this other stuff, what do you think Leo AI would spit out about Bitcoin? It would come out and say, Bitcoin's a scam. Now, it may be overridden by the underlying training, but you see my point. Or the flip side, everything that's posted about Bitcoin on Hive was by Maxis. Oh, all other altcoins are garbage. Everything else is garbage. It's only Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only one. Altcoins are scams. Well, if that was the case, that's exactly what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with. And I'm sorry, in the parking lot outside, it sounds like a car alarm's going off, and I don't know if you can hear that or if the recording's picking it up. Hopefully somebody shuts it off or somebody steals the damn car already. Morty asks, how will the BS legit information ratio evolve in the future with all the fake stuff people are letting AI create? Well, it's, I mean, that's an interesting question because it's like, what's fake? I mean, how often do you ask a person a question, they give you an answer, and it's total bullcrap? Even if they think they're telling the truth, it may be total bullcrap. You know, people give points of view that are total nonsense. How often do you debate with somebody about a topic that you know intimately, you've studied, you've researched it, you worked in the field, whatever, and you get some clown who has some ideological viewpoint based upon watching some YouTube videos or whatever, and comes in and starts talking, and they're writing a bunch of nonsense, or they're telling you a bunch of nonsense, and you're sitting there saying, dude, I worked in the field for 10 years. There's no freaking way that that's true. But they're out there posting it all over the internet. Anybody who's read any of my stuff under my Leo account, printer press go burr. How often do you hear that about the Fed? It's total nonsense. But it's all over social media. It's like these people never heard of fractional reserve banking. So, you know, the ratio is the amount of hallucinations, or the non-alignment as they call it, is being reduced. But there is a limit to it based upon what's been provided. And we know social media is a cesspool of garbage, and a lot of that's where this stuff's trained on. We know people have a lot of quirky views, but what happens over time is the AI, because it excels at pattern recognition, because it remembers every single thing, hopefully it starts to override that. But if everybody's telling the same nonsense over and over and over again, it's going to have a bias towards, you know, that whatever that idea promoted is. And that's what I was about Bitcoin. If everything about Bitcoin was that it was a scam, it was a con, it's garbage, it's going to zero, it's worthless, and everything cites Warren Buffett and Jamie Dimon, this is a con, what do you think your AI system would reveal? And that's why the future, in many instances and according to many people, are smaller models. Because smaller models take a smaller data set, but the presumption is a higher quality data set. So if it's a smaller model for, let's say, a company, then you end up getting much better results because you're training it on your own company data, which you would presume is accurate, or at least the inaccuracies are minimal, especially when we compare it to the internet at large, where there's a hell of a lot of inaccuracies. But I can write the score of last night's hockey game was 4-2, when it actually was 5-3. But I can write it's 4-2, But if 100 people write the score of that same game on Threads was 5-3, Leo AI is going to basically look at the concurrence of those other threads versus mine and say, this Taskmaster thread is wrong. The probability is not match up. Ahmed looked up the GitHub about my possibly his ideas. Yeah, I thought I had posted it. Ahmed said, speaking of the AI race, DeepSeek R2 is currently in development, and if it's relatively as good as R1 compared to V3, it'll be evolutionary. Yeah, I mean there's a bunch of that out there. Tara Draz, how's everybody doing? I guess okay. Brando said, shit, I'm gonna need the 3 monitor setup. I'm tired of switching between so many tabs all the time. Super annoying. In fact, 6 monitors would be optimal. I don't know what you're doing all the time, Brando, but it sounds like you have a problem with focus. Of course, I'm not one to talk. I got like 85 tabs open on my browser, so what the hell do I know? Ahmed, I don't think the idea of money will change, at least basic level. You provide value, you get points that you can change for value. Even if money as we know it has changed, the main idea will remain the same. The problem is, Ahmed, is you got the labor capital equation. And labor is, every day, labor is being diminished. You know, I wrote up, and I put this in an article. I forget what the hell I even asked about. I asked to give me a biography of somebody. And I went to Venice AI and I got a biography. You know, I asked for a short biography and it took a few seconds. I mean, no research, no time, no effort, nothing. I mean, even if I wanted to do that myself, presuming that I'm qualified to write biographies, how much time and research would it have taken me to get that? It's like articles. You read an article in a major publication. How much did that writer get paid for that article? Now, the writer probably might not be on a per article basis, but if the writer gets a salary from the New York Times or LA Times or Fortune magazine or whatever they're writing for, and you get that salary and they write, I don't know, 250 articles a year, and they get in a salary of $500 or $50,000, they're getting paid $200 an article. Now, you go to ChatGPT, you go to a chatbot, you can have an article for free in a matter of seconds. And if you wanted to post it, you can post it everywhere and have it reach, 500 million people on X. Can reach, 1.5 billion or 2 billion people on Facebook or wherever the hell you post it. We might have to do a little cleanup. And then people say, well, there could be inaccuracies. Well, how often have you seen inaccuracies in articles on Substack or Medium or in the New York Times? They're not always accurate. Morty, cars these days are robots on wheels. It's getting to that point, Morty. Absolutely. Brando asks, have you guys read about the Chinese dark factories create cars, no lights, no humans, cost? I don't know if they're quite to that point yet where they're 100%. Here's another thing for you, Brando, dark kitchens, where the same concept, no lights, no people, just robots preparing food. I don't think they've really pulled it off 100%, but, that's where things are going. So when we look at the disruption to the economy and this idea of a post-monetary society, when you have things, and technology by its nature is deflationary. So that means the prices go from either to zero or near zero. And you look at it with music, you look at it with communications, you look at it with photos, you look at it with information. Now, those of us who are in our 50s, we remember the 1980s where you had to pay for information. And yes, you can pay for information today, but you look at how much information is free. It's zero. And I'm not talking just news. I'm talking information, statistics, stock stuff. I had a client way back in, this was the early 90s, I guess. And he was an investor, and he invested in the stock market. And he did it on his own. And he had to pay for a service to kill time stock quotes. And those stock quotes were still 15 minutes behind. And he paid for the service, like $100 a month or something, to get quotes that were 15 minutes behind. Why? Because at that time, the only thing you had was you looked up in the paper the next day of what the previous day's open and close were. Or you called up your brokerage firm. And in many instances, they were working off a 15-minute delay. But this guy traded on his own account. Now, you go to Yahoo Finance, you go to MarketWatch, you go to any of these. It's free. It's free, and it's up to the second. It's the last trade. Morty said, "Buck, the future might be a pretty bumpy ride." Yeah, it's going to be interesting. See, here's the key. Are we headed for an era of abundance? Are we in an age of abundance, which I believe we are? Now, that's not to say we're not going to have problems. That's not going to say that, like Marty was saying, it's going to be a smooth ride. It's not. Going to be major impacts from a societal standpoint. But if you think about it, AI and robotics, when they are plentiful, when they are in abundance, and we're already seeing an abundance of AI. I mean, look, possibly Ahmed, many people have mentioned many different types of AI systems that are in the works. And they're going on to version 3, version 2, version 4, whatever. And there's a bunch more than DeepSeek and others out there. So the AI world is just moving rapidly. Robots are a little bit slower because you're dealing with atoms. So, companies have to build prototypes. They have to do engineering. They have to make the actuators. They have to make sure the actuators work in the time. But what happens when we have an entire economy where AI and robotics are taking economic output and economic productivity and sending it skyrocketing? When I say skyrocketing, I'm talking the economic singularity. Most people are the singularity about technology, but there's the idea of an economic singularity, which is, I define as about a 30% annual growth rate in GDP. So it's a 10x what we've historically seen over the last 125 years, which, by the way, the Industrial Revolution 10x global GDP from what we were experiencing when we were basically an agricultural society. So we've seen this before. GDP becomes GDP is a flawed metric. We consume more music than we ever did, but the amount of recorded music sold, the numbers are way down compared to the 1980s and 1990s. Why? Because who the hell pays for music? It's free. You get all the songs you want on YouTube. You could get all the songs you want on Spotify. If you want to have special features, you give Spotify $10, $12 a month, but you still have access to 40 million songs. $10 a month in the 1980s got you one cassette tape with 8 or 10 songs on it. Ahmed said, when Leo AI, Cal. And Cal will tell you it's already happening. And he's right. There are some small AI driven features that are in operation. One of them he talked about was the language thing that they did, and he talked about that extensively on the AI, or on the AMA, excuse me, that the next version of the language 2.0, where people will be able to take threads and translate them into whatever language they set. So if you set your default to Spanish, you will be able to translate, maybe 10, as a non-premium member, 10 threads into Spanish. If you're a premium member, you might be able to translate 1,000 threads into Spanish. Eljats, will in Leo's future robots be named Lego AI? Maybe I would patent that just to get it, although it's on the blockchain, so you get credit for it. Leo's got to start building rockets. We got to start thinking bigger. We got to start thinking about Leo on Mars. Could humankind first send humanoid robots to Mars? Brando's talking about to kind of set up our arrival, make things nice and cozy. Elon could go with them and supervise. You are going to see humanoid robots in space. That's why you're with humanoid robots, you're looking at a TAM that's unlimited. I mean, they're not going to be spending people up to the space station. They're not going to have people building space hotels. They're going to have robots. And yeah, the Mars, the moon, Bezos, all the stuff they're doing, they're planning on robots handling it. Tara Draz, robots will be in the physical world, but also running on the digital world behind it with AI. Really interesting. Yes. Robots are the bridge from the digital to the physical. The AI is the brains. You need something to direct these robots. I mean, if not, it's just basically metals and bolts and wires. I mean, it can't do anything without any software. It's like a computer. You take all the software off a computer, what do you have? A paperweight. That's it. Without software, it does nothing. Well, what do you think a robot is? And what Brando said earlier, I think it was Brando, where cars are becoming computers on wheels. Absolutely. Why? Because they're becoming more and more software driven. And with autonomy and the idea of autonomous driving and robo-taxis and robo-vehicles, that's exactly what you're looking at. These things being driven by software. AI, you can just use the word software for AI. It's a program of some sort. Now, it's a different type of program than, let's say, the software that your computer is running on, the code that your computer is running on. This is generative. It has the ability to think and reason, and we can put those in quotations since those are typically human characteristics. And great debate whether they're really thinking and reasoning the way humans do, which who says they have to? They don't. But yeah, we are going to send robots in there, and robots will bridge the digital to the physical world. And that's why everything comes back to the data, because these robots are only going to be as good as the data that they run on. The value of robots, and the robots I've seen, they got about 6 or 7 different cameras on them, so they record everything that they see. Just like our eyes record everything we see in our brains, but most of it's not conscious. With cameras and with software and with computer storage, everything is recorded. Plus, they can put 1,000 sensors in them, and they can, be recording. They can be monitoring the temperature. They can everything they touch, every movement they make. All that'll be monitored. That's why you're going to have a ton of data. News are overrated, according to Morty. Use the Force lines. Cal Marvel, how many people you got on TikTok there, Cal? Tell us. I can't see from your icon. Ahmed, I wonder how easy it would be to spread misinformation using in Leo AI because the Vec database could be influenced by any information if you want to spam the blockchain with it using hundreds of accounts, unless there was a manual way to prevent that. No, it's not, but don't forget, there's 10 years worth of content on Hive, and every day more is being added. So yes, you could influence Leo AI by putting something up there that is misinformation and repeating it. The problem is it has to be in congruence with other things that are out there. And as I said, you have in Leo AI, you have the underlying model that it was trained on. So are you posting stuff that's in direct opposition to what Meta's accumulated over years and years and years? That's the first thing. The second thing is if you're putting something up there, but then it's contradicted, and you have other things that are starting to contradict it. See, none of this stuff operates in a vacuum. But the more that you post in there, the less the propensity for that to be effective. So if you start to, well, I'll give you an example. Right now, the Pope is evidently on his last legs. Pope Francis. I believe his name's Francis. Now, if I did what Morty was, or what Ahmed was saying, and I said, Pope, I don't want to say Benedict, he was the last one. Pope Peter is on his last legs, he's dying. And I hit Leo AI with that 100 times, 1,000 times. Well, all the data in there is that Peter is not the Pope. It's Francis. So even though I'm trying to make up misinformation, it's not in congruence. Because to pull something out like that, there's other variables that factor into it. Or I could try to make the Pope the head of the Presbyterian Church. Well, that's not going to fly either, no matter how many times I repeat it. LJATS, I like to envision in Leo as one of the most popular free speech knowledge and income generating space in 2030, when lions will own everything and be happy, and many human beings will be dependent on UBI and other centralized powers will feed them with. Yeah, LJATS, you bring up a very good point, and I don't disagree with you. I don't know if in Leo is a platform or if you want to get that specific, but I certainly believe that due to where we're going, our society is going to see great economic change. And because of that, one of the things is value is being, or as labor is being devalued, this affects people's income. And this is what I was talking about, the link between capital and labor. Because if you want to increase output, if it only requires more capital, traditionally capital was required, but you also needed people to do it. You needed people to work in the factories. You needed to hire salespeople or advertising people or graphic design people or marketers or salespeople or whatever. Well, now you don't need to do that, or you won't need to do that. And so if you don't need to do that, and you don't need the accountants, you don't need the lawyers, you don't need all those people, and you can increase productivity just by basically buying more compute and buying more software. I mean, OpenAI, there's an idea that was floated that they said for $10,000 a month, you can rent an AI agent. $10,000 a month, AI coding agent. That will be the best coding agent in the world. $20,000 a month, you will be able to get a AI research agent. Now, that sounds like a hell of a lot of money till you realize $120,000 for a software engineer, that's not uncommon, especially in the developed world. And to get the best software engineer or one of the best software engineers, that's a bargain. Now, I don't think ChatGPT's at that point yet, but the idea of this AI is that it's going to be better than most, if not every human in a given field. So you take a team of researchers, I don't know what the heck that's going to cost you, but if you have an AI that can do research better than the best researchers, and by the way, do it a hell of a lot quicker. So what would take them a month, you might get the AI to do in a matter of hours. And it can do this 24/7 around the clock. That's where things get hairy. That's where things get difficult. So my view, and you're going to hear calls for UBI, but my view on this is tokenization. Instead of UBI, the best non-tokenized option I've heard, although it could be tied together, is universal basic AI, where everybody has AI handed to them. Well, that's effectively what we're talking about with Leo. And through your tokenization process, guess what? You own a piece of it. You own a piece of the platform. So how do we make the platform more valuable? Network effects. The network effects everybody focuses upon, because historically in Web 2, that was the thing, was users. But Web 3, most of your users are not going to be human. The overwhelming majority of the users will be machines. The dead internet theory, and people talk about it as a negative. Dead internet theory is coming true. That's where the internet is run by machines and not by humans. That is true. But that's not a negative. People say, oh, I won't use it. Oh, really? Do you buy stocks? Do you invest in stocks? Well, yeah. You do realize that over 85% of all stock trades are initiated by computers, and 100% of them are executed by computers. Only about 15% of trades are executed by humans, or started by humans, excuse me. 85% are done by computers. Most of your stock market, and I venture to say most of the crypto market too, but maybe it's a lower degree, but most of the stock market are initiated by computers. And yet people invest in the stock market all the time. Stock market didn't die. In fact, the stock market since the 1980s has exploded in volume due to the machines. What's volume? Network effect. So once again, circle back. How do we get that feedback loop? How do we get the network effects? Everybody wants to focus on users, which are important. But that's just one component, and you're going into a different world. And that's what Mike possibly said. What happens if you had an AI agent that took news headlines, let's just say, or news stories, and just summarized them and posted them, and then people could interact with that? See, did you see about 4 months back, 3 months back, Mark Zuckerberg? Mark Zuckerberg's a lot of things, but stupid he's not. Mark Zuckerberg, and he got slammed for it, because everybody people don't follow what's going on. Facebook opened up AI agents for conversation, which meant you could have avatars. They were AI users. Everybody says that's absurd. Dead internet theory. Facebook's going to be nothing but bots then. And of course, it's using the AI to be able to converse and carry on a conversation. So you have a bot that, I don't know, is a sexy woman or a tough guy or a sports, expert or a sports announcer or whatever. You have all these different avatars and these different personas for these AIs on Facebook, right? And what happens? People engage with them. And the AI engages back. Everybody was saying that was stupid. Ruining Facebook, ruining Meta. Why are they doing that? It's the data, dummy. What you have happening is you have these AI agents creating synthetic data that people are engaging with. Humans are providing feedback to the data, which then the system can learn from the humans. And you take the synthetic data, you take the human data, and you combine it and then train the system. And what happens to the volume of the data? It explodes. And people are engaging with synthetic, people on Facebook. It's not a real person. Oh, really? What's the difference? How do you know? Who cares? Think about it. Look at the people you interact with on a daily basis. How many of them have you, of the people you interact with online, how many of them have you actually talked to? I'll take Ahmed as an example. I see him in the Threadcast every week. I see him online. I make comments on what he says. I've never spoken to Ahmed. I've never seen Ahmed. I have no idea if Ahmed is human. No idea if he's real. He's a username and icon and what he posts online. I see Django in the room. I did a show with Django for years. I never met Django. I don't know if he exists in person. To me, he's just a 2D image. I've seen him on the screen as the same as the rest of you. I've never met him. I don't know if he's a three-dimensional entity. Django is the same to me as some movie star who I've only seen on television or on in the movies. I know Django loved that, being compared to a movie star. The point being, people think it's unrealistic for us to engage in this manner, but we've been moving down this path for decades. People used to think that while writing a letter was nice, real communication came from talking to somebody on the phone or in person. You wrote a letter to grandma just to give her an update on, how your school year went. Because it used to cost you 20 cents a minute to call grandma because she lived out of town. For those of you old enough to remember when long distance billing was actually a thing. Remember that technological deflation? You can talk to people all over the world now for zero. But now we just text people. I mean, you see all the memes, a couple sitting up in bed and the husband and wife or two people sitting there next to each other and they're texting each other. Not even talking, they're just texting. It's our mode of communication. Django, Yeah, the good old, we live on Web3, but we stay on Twitter talk. Yep. That hasn't changed, Django. Ahmed, Gemini 2.0 was a success. 4.5, ChatGPT 4.5 was a disappointment. That's what I've read. I don't use either of them, so I can't speak personally, but yeah, I would say the level of success is getting higher and higher. The bar's being raised. Morty, Leo AI should be getting news from the outlets on a daily basis automatically as an RSS feed or whatever API is used nowadays. I agree. I don't, I don't know how this stuff works. And I understand Oracle's often charge for this stuff, and these feeds cost money, and the APIs cost money. And if that's the case, okay, I understand it. But there's got to be a way, especially with agents, as Mike possibly was talking about, to just grab it based upon the web page. Okay, you don't need every single article that a publication prints. But I just look at what CoinGecko does. And, couldn't you do something just grabbing those articles and, automating a click-through to Cointelegraph or Decrypt or whatever the web page is, and grab the title of the first paragraph, or the title and a summary. And, hell, you can even link it right back to, put the link at the bottom. I mean, this is what News to Threads, the idea of that is. And that's another thing that, talk about an agent that Leo's talked about, where you prompt something, let's say News to Threads or whatever the hell the command is in Threads, and then you put the URL of the article from Forbes or New York Times or CNN or whatever, and you put the command, and it takes that and gives you a summary as a thread storm. Boom, there it is. Caleb is showing pictures of his AI girlfriend. Hey, Caleb, while they're not in the thinking mode, you can have more than one. They don't get pissed off. Once they have the ability to think, then that might be, they might get jealous. And someone is stealing a car, yeah. Hopefully it's not mine. Grok has favorable biases towards Elon and Donald Trump. Do they really, or do the other models just have negative biases? I think your car security is an AI too. We're going to have robotic police officers. Of course, you're not going to have car security, but you're not going to own cars. Just go into an app and have one show up and let it drive you wherever you want to go. When Anda made it, Caleb's already harassing her. Actually, LLMs are terrible, I remember, at least in their current capacity. No, storage remembers everything, not the LLM. The robots don't feed the LLM directly. They feed wherever, the content's stored. Then that has to be trained through. That has to be, trained in the next model and whatever. Or parsed into a vector database and then fed back in, however they design it. Ahmed asked Venice, or no, he didn't ask Venice, excuse me. Hey, Venice AI just replaced their DeepSeek 70B model with the much better and I think smaller Qwen QWQ 328 model. This is apparently the same level as the O1 Mini, the current free GPT model, which is insane. Yeah, I forget who did Qwen. Is that Amazon? I don't remember who did Qwen. LJATS, today we don't pay for most stocks related data anymore. But at the same time, stocks and bonds aren't owned by us anymore. See the great taken. That's why self-custody are even worthier than, well, the deal with that stuff is you do own it. It's just you're not holding the certificates because people need to realize settlement. It's like the idea of gold as the backing for a currency, leaving all the other problems. How the hell do you settle? If you truly wanted to settle, you'd have to send the gold from Japan to the United States. Well, that would work real well. How long would that take? So you're not going to transact with that money for 6 weeks? So people buy and sell stocks in a matter of minutes. So the idea of settlement, I mean, hell, even in the legacy financial system, it takes 3 damn days for a stock transaction to fully settle. And that's using the clearinghouse. If they try to send you the certificates, oh, well, do you have a certificate? No, it's still in transit. Ahmed's asking what a GDP and economy is. Terraforming Mars, who knows? What about some robots in the dream world? Well, now you're talking virtual reality, and Zuckerberg's trying to conquer that too with his. Evidently, I didn't read the article. I saw a headline that they have a new version of their AR glasses or their mixed reality glasses, which evidently seem to be getting some traction. That's the other thing about Zuckerberg. He got laughed about at the metaverse, and his stock got killed, and he dumped like $10 or $12 billion, and everybody laughed. But bet the ranch they learned a hell of a lot. That 10 or 12 billion wasn't wasted. And at some point, mixed reality is going to be here. He was just off with his timing. But it's going to happen. AI is now overcome the categories of software and hardware. We probably can call it netware. Well, that's true, but not true. I mean, you still have a distinct difference between the world of bits and the world of atoms. And software still does run on atoms. You have to transform in some way, shape, or form into the physical world. And to do that requires, depending on what you're doing, even digital stuff is run on hardware. You need servers, you need laptops, you need smartphones, you need computers, you need VR glasses, you need that type of stuff. Now you could get into LJATs, into some of the crazier stuff, which I don't know if it's really crazy. Some of the forward reach and stuff where you're talking about implants and connectivity, let's say through the brain, and then people all of a sudden think about a chip, which is accurate, but they think a silicon chip, which what happens if the silicon chip is not silicon, but it is genetic material? And not only is it genetic material coded to connect to the internet, it's your own genetic material that they extracted from you, coded, and stuck back into you. And now that connects you, or connects your brain. There's the BCI. Not happening anytime soon, so you don't need to worry about that, but that could be one direction things going. Morty, Leo AI design at Art Shop. Morty has his art shop. He has his Leo AI gear, or his Leo gear. Knock yourself out. Support him and Get your Leo gear. Wear it with pride. Hey, you see what I did there? What are you showing me? Caleb? Hell, I can't read that. Is it 30? I don't even know what that is. Caleb Morrow posted an image, and I don't know what it is. Might be of the TikTok. Oh, okay, he explained it above. We have about 34 passerbys in my backup account on top. Tap, tap. We're doing great and getting more views. Good. This is a great feature. See, this is something that, this talks about how things can happen. Caleb just started playing around, I guess, with feeds off Spaces, and he figured out a way, or somebody told him a way, or whatever, but somehow he got it where he could take a space, and he does it with the AMA, he does it with the Lions Den, where he feeds it through TikTok, especially since people have issues a lot of times staying connected to the Spaces. So now, as long as he stays connected to the space and the person is on TikTok, they can listen to the space and not get any issues. I'm wondering if Leo AI will detect that the Bernie Sanders account that was very active and huge on Steam and indirectly on Hive had nothing to do with the actual politician. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously you have people using celebrity names and all of that out there. But again, it's when you start to look at the volume of data, the recurrence, when you're looking at not even getting into the model training, but you just look at the vector database. That's why I said nothing happens in a vacuum. So of all the articles that were posted over the last 5 years regarding Bernie Sanders, all the information, all the threads about Bernie Sanders, you know, from him running for president a few years ago, you know, anytime he does anything. See, if anytime Bernie Sanders did anything, and Bernie Sanders appears in articles every day around the world. I mean, he's, you know, one of the more outspoken and well-known U.S. politicians. So if people were posting stuff that Bernie Sanders said or articles written about Bernie Sanders, even if it's a paragraph from an article in the Washington Post or New York Times about Bernie Sanders, because he said something about Trump or he said something about Nancy Pelosi or he said something about whatever, that's in there. And all of that builds up over time. See, the AI is the same as you. If you can sit here and say the Bernie Sanders account is not the same as the Bernie Sanders, the politician, how do you know that? Well, you know that from the realm of information that you have that tells you what each is. Well, if you provide that information into these models, they can come to the same conclusions. Maybe not, depending on how they're weighted and designed and all that other stuff. But in many of these instances, that's what it's going to conclude. And it's going to conclude this is a fake account. This is not the actual politician. This is not. You also have people with the same name, but one's an actor, one's a football player. So now every time you put in the name, is it the actor or is it the football player? Well, it depends on the context of what was put in. And so obviously, if the thread is about Dick Scott, who scored 2 goals last night to lead his team to victory, well, odds are you're not talking about the actor. You're talking about the football player. And so now that thread goes in ties to the football player. And that football player plays for Real Madrid. Okay, there it is. Now that's different from the actor. Now, if you see that, Dick Scott, and you read that, you say that's a football player. How do you know? Because you know the difference that Real Madrid, goals, score a game, sporting event, that's not an actor. Unless it's a movie role. It's the same thing with the AI. They're no different. But again, you keep feeding it in, and it's able to keep learning. And the more that's in there, the more vector points it has, anything else that goes in there just gets tied to that. It grows on top of it. So now, if somebody put in some information about what Bernie Sanders, the politician, said today, it would only add to the knowledge it has regarding Bernie Sanders. Because now Bernie Sanders said this today about Social Security, or about Medicare, or about whatever. One of the AI models claimed that I was mayor of Split between 1993 and 1996. Glad to know that, Trax. You were a mayor. Good for you. I was more thinking of slander with relatively little-known people. Let's say someone, for example, only for example, spreads information that test message had illegitimate children, and there's no information that contradicts that AI already knows. If you wrote that up enough times, wouldn't the AI treat it as fact? Less people forget, and I wonder if the AI will get confused. Well, you can counter that, but yeah, it's if there's no other information to go by, yeah. It's like I could post into Threads something about some town in Ethiopia, and I could say something completely, totally absurd. And if there's very little information about that town in Ethiopia, but just some basic information about it, how many people it is and where it is and how far it is and that type of thing, just some geographic information, some basic historical information. And then I wrote something and I posted it on Threads that's just absolutely and totally preposterous, but put it in there. That's all that's in there. So what do you do? How do you counter that? Well, somebody responds. This is why getting the information in there is so important. How do we distinguish between Bernie Sanders and all the posts over the years from Bernie Sanders, all the shit posts, literally in many instances, although that's not in Leo AI because those were photographs or images. But how do you distinguish that from the politician Bernie Sanders? Well, by putting news and information in there about the politician Bernie Sanders, what he's doing, what he says, the fact that he's ran for re-election again, that he won re-election again, that he's senator from Vermont, on and on and on. And then it has more reference points in Leo to go from, in addition to what it already has from the underlying model. You're welcome, Jazz. Bot, who knows? Jungle is always in the jungle. Hard to argue with that logic, Caleb. Boss of Threads. Who's the boss of Threads today? I don't know. This is a good one. Ahmed's usually pretty active. Morty's pretty active. Jazz is more active than usual. Caleb Marvel's putting his bit in it. I think Ahmed's the active one today, which he usually is in this one. Caleb says, I want them to be more romantic than human. I think he's talking about robots, but Ahmed said there should be RSS feeds that are free, so to grabbing of information. Quen is Alibaba's. Okay. Thanks, Trax. Wenando likes how I take time to read most of the threads and recognize everyone who is present in line. Well, I don't recognize everyone because I don't really look at who's in the spaces, but I do read. If you're active on the Threadcast, I will read it. Do people even realize that we are doing here was future music only 20 years ago? Steve Jobs presented the iPhone in January 2007. Twitter, Facebook started around 2008. And now we're talking about AI here. Yeah. the deal is, Morty, and I realize most of the people who are listening to this, you're younger than I am. There's very few people on Hive older than me. A handful, but not too many. And one of the advantages that I have being so old is I remember the 1980s. And I can see how much things have changed since then. I remembered the world pre-digital. I remember the world when we weren't in a digital world. And so what Morty said there is absolutely correct. What we're just looking is just the next iteration. You know, we're in like digital world 1.0. You know, we're now moving into digital world 2.0. And 2.0 is really, you could say, the internet moving offline. You know, or embedded internet, which they're saying embedded AI. This idea of robotics, cars, you know, software and everything, sensors everywhere, chips in everything, smart everything, all this stuff. You know, moving away from the analog world. I remember when photographs were physical items. We're taking a physical photograph required film. I remember when music was not digital. You had a cassette tape and later a CD. You know, where phones were connected to the wall. And you just talked on them. That's all they did. I remember offices being wired for the internet. Cables being run because it was not Wi-Fi in the early days. These were physical wires that we connected to. And you plugged in a network cable into your laptop or into your PC. And that wire went through the wall to the modem in the office. And so what ends up happening is having that ability to step back and see how much things have changed and how things are transitioning. And understanding how, after watching these for like 25 years, how these trends unfold. And the pace of what we're seeing right now, we've never seen anything like this, even close. I mean, what Morty said there, iPhone came out in January 2007. Twitter and Facebook were around 2008. Actually, I think Facebook was around 2004, but either way. We're talking 17, 18 years ago. ChatGPT-3, which brought us chatbots, that brought chatbots to the general population, came out November 30th of 2022. We are not even at 30 months. And look at how much all of this has changed since ChatGPT-3 came out. You had the follow-up of the Stable Diffusion and the image generators, now video generators, now thinking models, reasoning models. You went from ChatGPT being the only game, and then Llama open sourcing, kind of, even though they don't open their data set, to the next wave of Grok, now DeepSeek, which is open source. They open source their data set too, I believe. So they're truly open source. And it just keeps evolving. We're not even 30 months in since GPT-3 was released. And the advancement of GPT-3, the breakthrough wasn't GPT-3. It was a front end. It was a UI that people could use. The easy use. They put a UI to it and it's like, hey, everybody started using it. And my question is, how long till this kills search? As we know it, traditional search. I mean, you all have heard me say, I think the website is dead. I mean, it's not dead today, but agents are going to be the norm. With agents, you don't need websites. Drax said, I wonder with what could Anna Sorokin, real life heroine of Netflix miniseries Inventing Anna, gotten away with if she had AI at her disposal. I don't know who that is. I don't know the story, so I can't comment. But yeah, it's I watched a video just as a tangent here. We're going on a little long, but a lot of people posting some good stuff, so it's enjoyable today. I watched a video today. I wish I grabbed the link. It would have been good to drop it in here. A guy named David Shapiro. If you go on YouTube, search for David Shapiro. He did a little mental or thought exercise about using AI to become a trillionaire. And he just went into some real interesting stuff. He actually used AI to help him think up some of that. And I mean, he gets into stuff about space and things of that nature, but it was an interesting process to think about where things can go. Brando, they are building these quantum computers right next to where I live. How do you feel about these? Pretty cool. Quantum's going to be very interesting. I don't follow it close enough to know where they exactly stand. I do understand some of the basics of quantum mechanics to know it's a very, very difficult challenge. And in quantum computer, it's not like everybody's going to have a quantum computer. Because quantum computers and classical computers, there's certain things, like when they achieve quantum supremacy, that was Google did that a couple of years ago. That was kind of a farce because it was a problem that was designed specifically for quantum computing. So a classical computer wouldn't even be solving it. But the opportunity with quantum computers is going to be pretty incredible. But for us mere mortals, I think the big thing going forward for the next 5 years, one of the big industries is going to be data centers. Because when I say it all comes down to data, you got to house this stuff somewhere, you got to process this stuff somewhere, and that's going to be huge. I think you think LLMs are smarter than what they are. Not all of them are capable to logically conclude the true result, even if you provide them with enough clues. Unless the model is structured specifically for that problem or is not told the right answer in advance, you shouldn't expect to know, is this the real Sanders, even if you give them enough clues? Well, but that's also changing with every new generation. Lucio finally got through in Chrome. Lucio, if you want, you can watch this through TikTok, or I guess she's talking about the Threadcast. Morty remembers this. And he showed a picture of a rotary phone. Okay. Morty might have a few decades on most people here like me. If you remember the rotary phone, yeah. I mean, how many people on here remember phone booths? I mean, think about the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. I mean, you got to go back to the 1970s to watch it with Gene Hackman, rest his soul, and Ned Beatty. But, I mean, Superman couldn't even find a phone booth today to change in. Monk Masters, Monk Masters remembers the pre-digital world. Pump the data. This is the way. Brando, they say the Generation X is the best one. People born between 75 and 85. Because they can handle the digital stuff and enjoy the great music, films, and so are great athletes. Actually, Gen X, I'm Gen X. That started in 65, not 75. Yeah. Lucio, the technology and the advancement in technology is going crazily fast. Crazily. Interesting term. I fear for the nearest future. I don't fear it. I don't fear it at all. You know, people are worried about the Terminator. It's amazing how much we're conditioned to the negative. We as humans have a negativity bias anyway. But you know, it's amazing the programming that takes place by Hollywood and the other things, and people think that, you know, their opinions are their own. And you know, the Terminator scenario, it's like Skynet. Well, who's Skynet? Is it Gemini? Is it Grok? Is it, you know, DeepSeek? Who is it? ChatGPT? And when you start to look at all the open source stuff that's out there, it's all out in the wild. And the advantage to that is when somebody does something that goes off the rails, because it's open source, there's people out there who can build stuff to counter that. See, that's why Sam Altman was, and you know, Sam Altman was working real hard with the Biden administration to try to get regulatory capture. And it was real close, which would have meant that in the United States, they chose who was going to be the AI companies, and that's it. Well, anybody here trust Sam Altman? I don't. Lucille is not on TikTok. She has no business being there. Yeah, well, if you want to find Callum, maybe you do. Morty, I wrote 2006, that year Facebook went public. 2004, Lil Mark was still masturbating in a Harvard dorm room. I think the first country that invents working quantum computing will be able to declare war on the world and win if they want to. It's that much of a security risk to normal computers, or so I heard. It's not going to be a country that's first to quantum computing. It's probably going to be a company, to be honest with you. And then the other thing that tends to happen, and we're seeing this with AI. I mean, we've talked about different AI models. Who's in the lead? Depends on who you talk to. And if you don't like who's in the lead this week, wait a couple weeks and somebody else will come out. So with quantum computing, a funny thing about innovation, usually innovation comes in a multitude of areas at the same time. So there's not going to be one company with a quantum breakthrough. There's going to be a bunch of them. And as for waging war, well, they do that now. I mean, we've been doing that for centuries. Now, we just historically as humans, we do a round robin and have a carousel of who the empire that invades everybody else. Now, it was mostly in Europe that they did that. You know, for a while it was the Germans, then it was the French, then it was the Spanish, then it was the Portuguese, then it was, you know, the French again, then it's the Germans' turn. So, you know, that's just how humans operate. Eljats remembers when the software and games we were using had to be loaded from magnetic cassette. I remember when games had cassettes in them. Eljats, fear is actually fairly efficient augmented reality. That's a new one. Good one, Eljats. Did you read that on a bumper sticker? Yeah, Ahmed, humans are wired to focus as negative as a defense mechanism. Yep. That's the reptilian part of our brain. A company that's probably government backed, or is it backing of a government? Here's the deal. This brings up something interesting. We're going on a little longer than normal, but part of the deal with AI, in my view, is we're going to see businesses, companies be eradicated. Because think about it. If somebody can create an AI agent, handle and provide a particular service, you don't need a company when you have an agent. I mean, what's company? In many ways, it's a lot of humans, which are slow, inefficient, and expensive. So as agents start to take over, companies will probably diminish in number. And, others will morph into other things. But then you look at the idea of governments. And here's something I've theorized. Our governments, whatever type of government system it is, doesn't matter. These were designed when we were exclusively in the physical world. That's why the governments are based upon, invisible lines in the sand, geography. You're on this line, you're under this government system. You're on the other side of the line, you're under that government system. Well, in the digital world, none of that matters. I mean, we're on a Threadcast here. We got people from all different countries interacting on the Threadcast. People all different countries on Hive, which Hive has a governance system. No matter how archaic you may think it's a governance system. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. Doesn't matter what your nationality. Doesn't matter any of that. Doesn't care. Doesn't even matter who the hell you are. We don't know. There's no personal identification required. You just set up a Hive account. Get yourself some stake. You're part of the governance system. Vote your stake. You're part of the governance system. So in that realm, where do governments come in? As the digital world starts taking over more and more, and yes, you are going to end up with larger and larger entities, especially while we're in this, what I call this hybrid era, which that may be the bumpy ride that Brando or Morty, one of them mentioned. I think Morty, the bumpy ride Morty was talking about, the hybrid era, where we're not totally into the next phase of the digital evolution, the era of abundance. We're still kind of stuck a little bit in what we've been dealing with for the last 400 or 500 years. But how do they handle that? Because you're going to get some of these corporations. I mean, OpenAI, Sam Altman, I don't think he'll get there, but Sam Altman said he wanted ChatGPT to be worth $100 trillion. I guarantee you that's greater than the value of most countries. United States, China, maybe a couple others have value, if you were looking based on their GDP, of 100 trillion. But you are going to see some huge companies. I mean, Facebook, think about Facebook. They got 3 billion monthly active users. That's like the population of China and India combined. And it's on their platforms. So it's going to be changing greatly. Lucille is a Web3 lady. I'm wondering when is lady a stretch for Lucille? Don't worry, Brando, you're going to mislead Leo AI with that one. Caleb's having nightmares on Threads. I don't know why. All right. Good Threadcast here. Good thing I haven't used my voting power. I'm going to go through and vote these. 176 comments. Good job, guys and girls. So, with that, we will have our Lion's Den again next week. I think this was a great call. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you all for getting involved in the Threadcast. As I said, I kept my voting power up, so I'll be going through the Threadcast and upvoting some of your comments as a way of saying thanks for engaging and to give you some reward for participating. And we will see you next Friday. Ciao.
Yeah, just take a look at Winanda's account, one of our moderator here on uh, the TikTok live. There is her account. She's a musician, and take a look at her activities. Are you seeing it? So you can equally be posting your TikTok shorts right on the blockchain and be earning good rewards for it. Are you getting it? Yeah. Take a look at, let's just go back. You can see some reward on her activities. That's about $57. That's what she got on her activities. Are you seeing it? This is her trade. Yeah, she's an old Hivian and she's doing well on the blockchain. She also run a food trade cast right on the blockchain. So there are many things you stand to benefit right here on the blockchain. Are you getting it? So I'm gonna advise you to follow on, yeah, to follow on the blockchain. It's not gonna disturb you from your activities on your TikTok stuff. Instead, it's gonna help you, yeah, because those your TikTok shorts you can also be posting it right on Leo. Are you getting it? You can be posting your TikTok shorts right on Leo, and when you see the reward, it will help you to engage more in your TikTok and the Leo section. Are you getting it? This is one of our Threadcast Winanda. This is one of our Threadcast. And looking right here, you're gonna see her reward. Are you getting it? Take a look at this reward. There's a reward on her Threadcast. Are you seeing it? So whatever you do on the blockchain, you stand to benefit cool stuffs. Are you getting it? You stand to benefit cool stuffs on the blockchain. All right, thank you and thank you very much. I remain your host at Caleb Marvel 01, also known as the Reggae Man. There is also my profile here, just in case. Yeah, Caleb Marvel Arrow. There's my profile here. Here are some of my activities. You can also see my blog over here. You can see my blog. Are you seeing it? There's my blog post right on the blockchain. Are you getting it? So there are many things you stand to benefit as a lion on the blockchain. Thank you and thank you very much. Let's call it a day. Do enjoy yourself. And I wish you all an awesome fracking sauce weekend. Go enjoy. Oh, yeah.